Hi, Filmatics. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to the show today. We have a spectacular guest for you. We have John Evershed. John is the CEO of High Concentrate and former CEO of Mondo Media. And John executive produced an award-winning library of shorts, TV series, and movies, including the two Annies for Happy Tree Friends, for Best Animated TV Series for Adults, and winner of Best Animated Feature Film at Berlin Film Festival for Dick Figures, the movie. And he's generated over 6 billion views on YouTube for Mondo's short form library. Let's welcome John to the show. Hi, John.
Hi, Marilyn. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure to have you here. And can you let everyone know where you are recording with us live today from?
I'm coming from beautiful Green Bay, California, which is just north of San Francisco.
Wow, north of San Francisco. Beautiful. Yeah. Wow, yeah. That's amazing. I've never been there. So Green Bay, is that along the coast over there?
It's as soon as if you go over the Golden Gate Bridge, just drive north 10 minutes from San Francisco and you'll hit Green Bay.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. So, John, you do so many amazing things, and you are basically a pioneer of, short films on YouTube and adult animation. And also, you are the author of the adult animation white paper, which the next edition is going to be coming out any day now. And also, it's a free annual report on the state of adult animation market and the adult animation database. So some of our listeners might really love that. So hopefully all of our listeners who are interested in adult animation, you can, find out how to get the free white papers from John. So first I wanted to ask John, growing up, what was one of your favorite childhood movies?
Well, I have to pick an animated one, obviously. And I'd have to say Jungle Book had a big influence on me. I was right at that age where I was discovering movies, and my mom took us to go and see Jungle Book. And I remember just falling in love with everything about it. It seemed so all-encompassing, that world, and the music was so beautiful. That was the era. That movie was made right when Disney passed away in the middle of making that movie. It was kind of the last of the great Disney features, and they sort of went into a fallow period after that. But that movie, it was very much of that era too, sort of mid-60s. It had a jazz music, score to it. So that movie really captivated me. I was the kid on Sunday morning that was always, or Sunday evening, when Wonderful World of Disney came on, was disappointed when it was a live action movie. It was like, it's going to be one of those. I want to see something animated. So that was the early influence. But honestly, more recently, my professional influence at the beginning of my career was I don't know if you're familiar with the Spike and Mike Animation Festival. You ever heard of that? It's called Sick and Twisted was the name of the animation festival. It was a showcase for animated short format content that was predated. MTV was one of the first ones to really, pick up that, this stuff kind of resonates with young adults with shows like Beavis and Butthead. Well, they found Beavis and Butthead on Spike's on his show. He was touring that particular short format video along with many others. He broke a lot of talent. It was the only place to find adult animation pre-internet. If you think about it, right, there really wasn't any. There's no there's only a handful of noteworthy, adult animated content up until probably The Simpsons, right? That was the big game changer. But that early stuff that was on Spike and Mike, it was a showcase for like kind of cool European indie stuff, and it was shocking. Some of it, a lot of it, that was in vogue. And then again, like MTV kind of grabbed that. If you remember, early MTV was a lot of animated stuff. Remember, it was all like claymation and weird little animated bumpers and things like that. That all came out of San Francisco. That all came out of a studio here. A lot of it from Colossal. It's no longer a studio anymore, but a really sort of important studio in that evolution of adult animation. That's a long answer to what was my most influential movie, but there you go.
Well, I'm with a Jungle Book. Akuma Matata. I hope we're allowed to say that.
That's The Lion King.
Wait. What was Jungle Book then?
You know,
Just dancing bears, and yeah, I really like all
right.
the fun dancing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, well, you're in the adult animation world, and I'm in the kids content. But I mean, everyone liked Beavis and Butthead and Family Guy and stuff like that. So yeah, so I want to ask you, growing up, then, did you have a favorite Criterion movie that perhaps inspired your career path?
I grew up in Canada, and Canada has a long history of doing. The National Film Board contributed a lot towards the animation industry, and it actually was a key part of like developing Canada into like, you know, that they're very big in the kids animation business, obviously, right? And they contribute tax credits to all the, you know, labor that's done up there in Canada. So I was influenced a little bit by that as a kid, because that was all around me all the time, that stuff, and it's very high quality, you know, artistic work, I guess. And so that had an influence on me. But I came here to the U.S. actually to work for, at the time, it was a subsidiary of the Chronicle, and I was doing early online trials. Like, my history is a little bit more like connected to online and video games leading into adult animation. I raised a lot of venture capital in Silicon Valley here in the first bubble, before the first bubble. And that's how I started Mondo. And I was able to, you know, Mondo's focus was short format animation for teens and young adults primarily, right? And then YouTube came along, and I started doing a lot of YouTube work. Obviously, you mentioned that we've done 6 billion views on YouTube. So we gravitated a lot of our stuff towards YouTube. But honestly, more recently, my focus has been on the big SVODs, on the Netflixes and the Hulus and the Amazons and these kinds of buyers, because that's where the biggest heat is at the moment in the adult animation business.
Yeah, one of my friends, he is a independent publisher, and he's got adult animation too. Like, it's called Goon Tunes on YouTube. So he's got like close to 200,000 subscribers, and like we are so different. Like, his animation and mine, like mine is like sweet and bubbly, and his is like more adult and like horror. And I'm like, that's just so different than me. But like, it's really popular, and like, I just think I heard about, like, Fairfax just got a deal. It's called Fairfax or something like that. And yeah, so it's just amazing how, you know, what gets popular with anime and adult animation, and there's just it's just really amazing. So I'm gonna ask you, like, did you have a favorite director then? Like, because you're a producer as well. So is there a favorite producer or director and of a film that you just love and fell in love with?
One of my favorites is the guy that just directed the first episode of Invincible. That's the superhero series that just started airing on Netflix on the weekend. His name is Robert Valley. He directed a short called Pear Cider and Cigarettes that was nominated for an Oscar a couple of years ago. I think he's one of the more interesting directors at the moment that I really like a contemporary director. You know, there's a couple of things going on in the adult animation business right now. One is that, you know, it's quietly, animation has replaced the sitcom as the most preferred, as millennials' preferred way to consume comedy. Even Comedy Central is making a shift right now from you know, they're rebooting literally Ren and Stimpy and Beavis and Butthead as some of their major, Daria, a spinoff of Daria. And so they've kind of seen the writing on the wall. Like, if we want to be relevant, if we want to hit young adults, we've got to do adult animation. So Comedy Central's made the shift. Fox, you know, they're the only broadcaster that has a lot of adult animation. But what they've done is, you know, they've got their animation domination block, which is, you know, your Simpsons and your Family Guy and Bob's Burgers, those kinds of shows. They're expanding from Sunday night into Monday night. They've got about probably, I think they just announced they have at least 24 new series in development, and they're expanding beyond the sitcom format. Like they were the classic family sitcom animation home, if you will. But they're expanding aggressively. And of course, the streamers are really expanding aggressively. So there's that one trend where animation's kind of replacing comedy as like, you know, the sitcom. If you Google search sitcom right now, it comes up with all shows that that are no longer in production, right? It comes up with Community and Brooklyn Nine-Nine and these kinds of series, right? They're all out of production. If you look up, you know, animated comedy, it's a long list. You know, it's Archer and you know, from everything from Archer to like there's at least a dozen there that are right out in front of you, right? So there's that trend. There's this it's taking over comedy, but it's also interestingly opening up into like these new non-comedy genre categories. Okay, so there's a dozen new animated series coming out based on video games. Okay, that's a whole new category. Today, there's only one on-air series called Castlevania that is based on a video game. There's a dozen of these new games, and you know, like that includes everything from Arcane, Cyberpunk, Dota, Diablo, Overwatch, Resident Evil. These are all major gaming franchises with animated series. This is a whole brand new category that's like developing in front of our eyes here. So that's going on. And there's just a ton of reboots and spinoffs that are happening now that you know, that for some reason they're going to the well. I mentioned already all those Viacom series like Beavis and Butt and that kind of stuff, right?
And maybe Futurama's going to come back.
Yeah, they're rebooting Clone High, Good Times. Okay, you remember that sitcom, the live action sitcom?
Oh wow! I saw they're doing like Scooby with Velma. Like
Velma, that's a spinoff from Scooby Doo.
Yeah.
And that's just the beginning of the list. I mean, we're talking about Masters of the Universe, which is He-Man, that franchise. X-Files, they're doing an X-Files animated spinoff.
Really? You know, Jeffrey Kramer came on the show, so I bet you that he's excited about that.
I don't know. I'm not sure, but
he's one of the Gremlins. Ah, wow, yeah. We love the Gremlins. So Batman. It's just insane. But like, I wonder if like everyone has, you know, will they get sick of all, like a plethora of like 200 new animation or anime? Do you think it'll be sensory overload, or will it be just right?
It's a good question. I don't know. There's two questions, right? One is, will audiences embrace these brand new categories that are somewhat tested, right? Like, you know, you like rebooting. I think it's a tall order to reboot Ren and Stimpy, for example. Is that going to resonate in today's market? Is it going to mean anything to anybody? Does like a 24-year-old even heard of Ren and Stimpy? So that's one question for the reboots. And then on the video game category, these are all serious dramas. Like they're not comedies. They're kind of, you know, genre stuff like horror and action and that kind of thing, sci-fi. So is that going to work? The big question mark with audiences, right? So, and then the other question is there enough talent, honestly, to execute on all of it? You know, like can they really produce the quantity that they're talking about? Yeah. One of the interesting things is Japan. Right now, Netflix is running around locking up all the studios in Japan, and so is Crunchyroll, which is owned by Sony. So the two of them are sort of trying to get these output deals, you know, lockups with studios, so that. But there's a finite pipeline there. It's a very kind of you know, Dickensian kind of work environment for animators in Japan. If you know anything about how anime is made, it's not. They pay them very poorly. It's very bad working conditions. So it's going to be interesting to see with this surge of like buying around anime, can Japan, literally deliver on all that content? Because it's really stepping up. Like, just to give you an order of magnitude, last year my research showed that there was 50 shows in development or production for the upcoming year. It's doubled by 100%. There's now 100 that I've documented that have been announced. And that's only the ones that are announced.
Yeah, and then
in 1 year.
Well, I saw that they're paying people to. It's like they'll be paying and training people, which is not. But is it only in Japan? What about in USA or France or Italy or anywhere else around the world where they're doing that? Or because I heard that there's just not enough animator people to keep up, like you said, to keep up with producing the artwork and doing all that. Because it's, even though there's computers, there's still a lot of things that humans need to do to make an animation or anime or adult project, right?
Yeah, it's a highly skilled trade, right? Well, here in the U.S., I can't think of any like active things that are going on, other than that I have a feeling like L.A. is kind of maxing out. Like, all the studios in L.A. Have got to be tapped out. So I think it opens opportunities up. Did you see that announcement that Bento Box is doing a deal with a company called Princess Pictures out of Australia for adult animation? Disney just opened up a whole dedicated unit called 20th something or other, 20th Animation, I think, 20th Animation. And similarly, I think it opens the doors, because right now, most adult animation is either done in the US or Japan, and almost kind of nowhere else. There's very few. It's not like the kids business, right, where you have a lot of, French, British, Canadian, producers all making animation. Because it was historically comedy. Because it was historically comedy, it's a voice thing. So they weren't picking up comedies from international studios, and so they were somewhat kind of locked out of the game, if you will, the adult animation game. But now that there's so much demand and that it's diversifying into genre, I think it opens the door back up to international studios to kind of play.
Well, hopefully they'll allow new talented voiceover people to get that lucky break to embrace new talent. Like, hopefully they'll call me, because I do voiceovers, with my kids' content. Oh, yeah, of course I do. Oh my God.
Well,
and then, my podcast hit #1 around the world, top 1.5. So cha-ching. So somebody's got to want, like, I'm well known. I'm #1 in a lot of countries. So that brings value. They're like, oh my God, Lady Twistleton. So I'm hoping that I get that call soon. It's like, yep, we want that voice.
Yeah.
So,
with COVID, what I'm understanding from the studios is that the talent agencies are reaching out to them and saying, hey, it's pretty quiet on the live action front here. So we've got, better talent than arguably was available at the studios prior to that, available to them, because they're out of work at the moment, a lot of them. So that's a weird byproduct of COVID, is that that you see some pretty amazing casts getting attached to some of the more recently announced series for like Netflix and Fox and these kind of buyers.
Well, I think people around the world would want them to discover new talent, or we're hoping, and especially someone that has hit #1 in almost every country, I think has earned their stripes to be considered. So you know what I mean? Especially, they're saying they want to help females, so here's a female. But most importantly, I wanna talk. So, like, you recognize early on short content. You recognize YouTube was going to be incredible. Like, you're like an entrepreneur, you're an investor, you're a producer. You just were really genius of having that, like you have that entrepreneurial spirit. An investor, again, producer's job is to see stuff and to know it's going to be good, in which you are very great at. And so I want to ask you, like, you said you grew up in Canada. So how did this all start? Like, because our audience is like, well, he knows so much. How did this happen?
Well, I started to describe, right, like I was an English lit major, so I got a job offer here in the US. Yeah. And I use it to this day, all day long, right? All the stuff I learned, like reading scripts and that kind of thing. So it's actually it's been a real asset. But and I've got kind of my MBA through osmosis over the years, right? Because from running studios and stuff like that. But and raising money, that's a lot of it. Raising money for shows, raising money for companies. But my background is that I started kind of doing a lot of art and animation for video games and online websites and IDs for TV series and things like that, right? But I sort of saw that adult animation was a viable category, and like I raised money on Sandhill, which is where all the VCs are. They wouldn't give money anymore to me because they don't like entertainment. But in that era, you were able to raise money around different ideas than you can today. But so I was able to. I sort of saw the internet. So I remember dismissing the internet when it first came to me. Like somebody showed me Mosaic, the early browser to the internet, like the predecessor to Netscape. And I'm thinking like, I've been trying this stuff like in-home online services for so long that it's just not going to work. And then it was about 6 months later, I'm like, oh, this is really the big dance. This is going to work. This whole .com thing, So I went out and raised money like, hey, I'm going to be the adult animation guy on the internet. That was the business plan. And I was literally like 20 years, ahead of my time with that thinking. And the cruel truth is it never really materialized. In other words, social media, social video, YouTube, those kind of platforms have devolved into what I call just video blogger ghettos. Their lowest common denominator. There's not much room for professionally produced content on those social media platforms anymore. There's only room for the guy or the girl with the camera, and they can be wildly successful. It's like fine-tuned for the noisiest vlogger on YouTube. You can do other things, obviously, but from a scripted entertainment standpoint, YouTube kind of killed whatever energy there was, and it's only kind of, I think, it appeared obvious to me that all the energy is going to be on the big subscription platforms now for scripted, professionally produced animation. That is exclusively where it will live, and the social video isn't really a viable, at least at this stage. And I would argue that Quibi kind of put the nail in the coffin for kind of, new platforms that try to find business models that aren't the big subscription platforms. So that's sort of kind of been my career trajectory, is trying to find where is the heat? What is the next thing here? How can we be on top of it? How can I anticipate it? And what I'm anticipating right now is that scripted, non-comedy genre animation will become a massive category, a global category, a little bit like anime is now today, but it's exotic and funky and not for everybody. It's not everybody's cup of tea. But what if you could produce long-form scripted dramas, horrors, mysteries, sci-fis that are intended for adult audiences and that have real international appeal?
Yeah.
Right?
Everyone loves sci-fi and fantasy, and I think, like you said, story and character, those are key, because there'll be all these trendsetters, and then you just have a pure story, and it'll just knock it out of the park. Like Downton Abbey knocked it out of the park. The Queen's Gambit knocked out of the park. So there's certain things that people just like their meat and potatoes. They like the Family Guys and the Simpsons. Obviously, the Simpsons have been around forever, but I think they like variety too. They do like their variety. And
I think is part of it's because of the popularity of video games. They all watch these cinematics in their video games, that tell stories between scenes and kind of stage things, and they're seeing all this animation all the time. They've become accustomed to it, and that's arguably why I think Netflix in particular thinks they're ready for a lot of these series that are based on video games is because this massive community, like video games industry is bigger than movies and music combined. Okay.
Yes, I agree with you. Because there like a video game, like everyone, you know, competes and like you can play like Twitch and stuff. You can play international with different competitors and those esports. So and now with the virtual reality, did you see the new there's this a virtual, you can have it in your house. It's a virtual, it's on like WeFunder or Seed Invest. And like Mark Cuban, I think, is behind it, and they've raised already like $11 million. And it's like this virtual reality, like, you know, like Paddington, you're running on that thing. Well, it's a virtual reality. You have the glasses and you're in this whole video game world. So so they're taking it up a notch as well. And so you're exactly right. You really know, you're like a predictor of the future, John.
Well, it's really happening right now, a lot of these trends. So as much as I'm on the front end of it, I'm reporting on some of the things that are, for the longest time, I had a thesis about adult animation, but these new trends in terms of how much stuff is coming, down the pike here in a little while. There's another company that I really like too, which is called Trioscope. These guys, they do, I have a couple of projects set up with them actually. And they do live action shot in a green screen soundstage and then composite it into computer generated backgrounds. But it's not just slapped on, it's the spatially aware camera. So you can move around in time and space, inside, and it looks like you're actually inside the show. But the whole thing flattens everything out, so the net effect of it is it looks like a moving graphic novel.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Is that a new thing? Like this moving graphic novel?
There's one series that went to air in the fall called The Liberator. That is their first mini series that they did using this technology, but they have some new projects coming down the line here that I'm pretty excited about. And two of them are mine, hopefully, or I brought to them.
Oh, so, great. Okay. Yeah. So I'm gonna we're gonna stop here and come. We're gonna ask our audience to come back with a part 2 so we can find out about your projects that you're producing, and then you can tell everyone about the white paper. So they're at this point they're like, oh, I want to get in the white paper and learn about adult animation. So Filmatics, join us for part 2 with John Evershed. We'll be right back.